Live streaming is on.
Welcome to a webinar today. I look forward to sharing all this great information with you guys. My name is Will Nobles. I am the CEO of Vector Choice. We're going to give a few minutes to let everybody join, but in the meantime, while people are joining here, if you don't mind, put in the chat where you're calling in from. We've got clients in 7 locations. We got 7 offices and about 23 states that we service clients in 2 countries. So you could be calling in all over the place. So look forward to sharing this knowledge with you and with the great lineup that I have here today to share this with you. And again, we'll get started here in about 30 seconds. But if you guys don't mind, share where you're calling in from. John, how's things been going in Florida after the hurricane?
Gorgeous. Perfect. Got rid of all the humidity. It's now just no humidity, 80-degree sunny days. Couldn't be better.
Did you have any? How much damage did you guys have?
I'll tell you, we got super lucky. Little. Nothing, a long weekend of yard work and a couple screws didn't fix. We were very fortunate, very lucky.
Good deal. And so the ones that don't know, John lives in St. Pete, Florida. So he barely missed the massive hurricane that came through a few weeks ago. They hit mostly, I guess, Fort Myers area and everything. So, well, guys, let's go and get started. Again, today's webinar is how the recent changes to the credit card payment standards will increase merchants' cost in 2023. And I think in all ways, either we are the merchant or we're using credit cards and debit cards all over the place at restaurants and stores and online. But also as companies, we're probably accepting credit cards. So we're going to be talking today about all the changes that have made and why you should definitely pay attention to what's coming about in 2023. Again, my name is Will Nobles. I am the founder and CEO of Vector Choice. My background is coming from the Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies. Before I started Vector Choice in 2008, and we've grown it to a multi-location managed services provider with the emphasis on cybersecurity and compliance. Mention of compliance, John DePero, which is on the call with us today, he's our Chief Compliance Officer. I will tell you, I've hired brainiacs around me. John has 2 decades in security and risk management. He was on the U.S. Armed Forces Counterintelligence Special Agent, worked with the NSA, and also was on the first cybersecurity task force for NATO. All that right there, his credentials should say he's a lot smarter than Will is. And then we also have Ryan Tice on the call with us today. Ryan is from Connect Booster. Connect Booster is our payment portal that we use at Vector Choice to accept credit card, ACH payments from our clients. So I figure, hey, why not have someone that is on with us that actually understands the process on the credit card side, and when you do sign these agreements saying that you're willing to do this and you take responsibilities for XYZ. I wanted him on today to share that with you guys. Ryan and John, thank you guys so much for being on today.
Thanks, Will.
It was a pleasure to be here.
So I wanted to introduce Vector Choice a little bit to you guys and who we are. But Vector Choice, our executive team is made up our CRO, Sarah Sawyer, John, you've met now, and Bo Dickey, which is our Chief Security Officer. And then our management team, we've got a wide range of knowledge on the management team here, from projects to finance to marketing to technical automation. So we've got an awesome management team. But what does Vector Choice do? We do everything from your internet's down, you can't print, computer doesn't work, all the way up to the compliancy and cyber things for businesses. That doesn't matter if it's HIPAA, CMMC, PCI, which we're talking about today, and we can do hardware and software procurement. And we do this mostly for medium and small businesses for that. The nice things about how we've grown over the past few years is the awards that we've received. So we've made the Inc. 5000 the past 4 years in a row, as well as the MSP 501 for the past 4 years. The MSP 501 is the top 501 MSPs in the world, not just United States, but in the world. And I think we made 111 this year out of the 501. So we're moving all on up, or I guess down to the number one position eventually. But we're doing very well from that standpoint.
We're also number two. We're also the runner-up for their new up-and-comers category for
Oh, really?
innovative new companies. Yep, we took number two for that.
Oh, great. Awesome. Awesome. I did, guys, I didn't even know that. John went, I was busy and on another road trip, and John went down to accept our MSP 501 award, but I did not realize that. So, John, thanks for adding that in. Also, our location. So, we're headquarters out of Atlanta, Georgia, but we have offices all the way up to Philadelphia, Nashville, Tennessee, Washington, D.C., New Bern, North Carolina, Mobile, Alabama, and Baton Rouge, Louisiana. We service clients in about 23 states and 2 countries currently. So I'm going to jump straight into stop sharing here for a second. And I hope, John, did that stop sharing for me there?
Yep.
Okay, great. So, guys, let's get down to it. What's changed? What is changing? I mean, we've been doing, everybody's been taking credit cards for years, right? Everybody has known the regulations of credit cards and the risks that you take. But what is changing? Why are we talking about this now?
And the simplest level is people are sick of spending their own money. So trillion-dollar financial institutions have moved risk down to billion-dollar financial institutions. They have moved it down to hundreds of millions of dollars payment processor. What the natural progression of assuming this risk and the costs that come with it, it's now gone down to 2023 more than ever. It is sitting at the merchant, meaning the hardware store, the restaurant, that small business that takes cards. So the lawyers and security guys at all these billion, trillion, gazillion dollar companies have wrote terms and conditions and policies that protect them. The group that doesn't have the team of lawyer and security guys to write terms and conditions that protect them is the local hardware store. And that's what's really changed, is that these companies have gotten sick of paying for security-based breaches. So they're putting the cost from those breaches down. And I think it's finally hit bottom floor, which is the merchant.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Yep. Yeah, from the payments industry. So I've been involved in credit card processing for a little over 15 years now. Just watching it progress over the years, you're exactly right. It's everything that we're going to see in the future is pushing that liability as close to the person accepting the card, so that merchant, the business owner, they're taking the brunt of the cost of risk, and the liability there is absolutely written to be on their hands.
Yeah, so Ryan, what is written into some of the policies to make it on the merchant now and not the credit card processor? What's some of the language changes there that have come or are coming?
Yeah, I mean, some of it's limiting their liability, right? So, and this is across the board. You could say, oh, I've got, I'm doing processing through my small bank, and they're not doing this to me. And I would say, go look at your agreement. They're all going to be roughly the same. It's a commodity at this point. And really, the commodity of accepting a credit card, the terms and conditions are very, very closely the same between whatever company you're using. But the way the language is written is it's limiting the liability to, essentially whatever your bill is, right? So your bill might be, $1,000 a month of processing costs, or maybe it's $5,000 a month of processing costs. That processor is really limited to that, from a financial standpoint, unless there's a major breach that you can prove that they were liable for, which is not going to happen. It's all going to, if there is a breach, it is on the merchant's level almost every time, and that's where we're seeing how PCI has come into the fray some years back was not really. I don't feel like it was intended for anything other than just limiting the liability of the card brands and the processors themselves and the banks.
So does it affect me as the buyer? So if I go into a store or a restaurant and I give them my credit card, does it affect me at all as the buyer?
Your effect is the trickle down because the costs increase because the risk increases on that merchant level. So therefore, the merchant, so say that's the hardware store, the restaurant, whatever it is, their costs are higher. How do you offset that? You raise your prices, right? So as someone paying, your costs go up. Your price of milk goes up. Your price of a gallon of gas goes up because that cost is being trickled down to you, or it should be, right? From the merchant standpoint, if you're not upping your prices, you're doing something wrong. Your competition will have to. You will have to.
Yeah. So, but from a risk standpoint, if the merchant or the restaurant is not following proper PCI compliance procedures, it doesn't affect me. The only thing it does affect is if they are doing that, they're going to pass that cost of the food or whatever I'm consuming back to the purchaser. Correct?
Yeah. So in a perfect world, they're not, they don't have a data breach. Just the overall cost of, the infrastructure as a whole gets trickled down to you. But, if they were to have a breach, they're out of business, most likely.
Yeah.
So the problem with the breaches too, we're talking just restaurants, right? Landry's, you've heard of them. They own Morton's and they own they own like 12 different restaurant brands all over the country. Large company running restaurants. They were recently hit with a $20 million assessment fee from Chase Bank and their payment card company that they own called Payment Tech, because there was a breach. And what's interesting is about this case is that there's absolutely no evidence, and no one disputes that there's no evidence that any of the stolen credit cards were used erroneously. There are no chargebacks. There's no fraud. What they were hit with $20 million is at Citibank, because of the size of Landry's, all these restaurants, they spent $20 million doing a damage assessment to see how compromised are they. They went to all these locations. Were they using MFA? Did they have encryption on the network that the device was located on? All kinds of stuff, right? And we'll talk more about that in a second, about what's new with that. But the key here is this wasn't from credit card chargebacks or fraud. It's just that the information was breached. They had to do an assessment to identify that there was no fraud. That assessment cost $20 million because of the size of Landry's. So let's scale that down. You're just one restaurant, one location. What does it cost for a team to come in at $250 to $400 an hour and do after the fact security assessment to see what are the effect of the breach? It's still thousands and thousands of dollars. That is not part of what Ryan talked about, the liability, like to the merchant provider. That is completely on the small business owner to pay for City Chase or City, whichever, it doesn't matter which one, for them to send that auditor. I mean, to be honest, Ryan could be the one sending that auditor to us, right? If we had a breach, Connect Booster might send it. It's in our terms and conditions that if assessment needs done, we have to compensate Ryan for his costs to do the assessment. Fingers crossed, we have really good security, so we're not going to have that call anytime soon, Ryan. But it's not just the doom and gloom of they're going to steal my cards and have a bunch of fraud charges, though that's bad. It's way bigger than that now, and the risk is not on Connect Booster or Payment Tech or any of these transaction companies. The risk is on the restaurant, the hardware store, or I don't care if you're doing it through the web. Your eBay, look at Block, which is the company that owns Square. They just got hit hundreds of millions of dollars for having a breach. So just because it's web-based doesn't make you immune either.
Yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit. John, is if I'm not holding credit cards, so like us, we don't hold credit cards. We have the portal. They put the information in the portal. What is as me as still the merchant? Um, uh, uh, what is my risk still? And Ryan,
That's a
you might
great
be better.
question. So historically, risk goes one level. There is risk, but it's lower, right? Again, all the costs to do the assessments is still on us, right? But the risk was lower because we were really worried about how the client got to the web portal. And yeah, we pay Connect Booster to manage the portal. So there was less risk. Here's what's changing in 2023. You have to do a scoping document that articulates the actual size of your network, where that device sits, where card payment information sits, even if it's just the last four of a card, right? So if you're saving stuff into an account so you can auto charge them every month, somebody's storing that. Now, if you're storing it, you have one level security. But if, say, Connect Booster is storing it for you, that's a different level. But what you have to do in 2023 that you've never had to do before is a scoping document that identifies where cardholder data lives, who's responsible for it, and then we have to have and maintain the contract with Connect Booster saying they're responsible for it in this scenario, and we're responsible for this stuff in this scenario. Where it's really going to hit businesses are people who use that little device that sits on your counter that you say, what's on mine? XYZ payment company just brought it and put it there, right? If it's on your network, your Wi-Fi, it's now your device for the scoping. If it's on your website, it's now on your website for scoping. So even if your responsibility is minimal, you at a minimum have to do that scoping document and have all the right language in your contracts with, say, Connect Booster, right, to articulate that. And that's something you've never had to do before that you have to do starting in March of 23.
Yeah, and Ryan, this probably leads into a question for you: is you as the processor are not going to wiggle a lot. I mean, you're going to have firm contracts. What do you tell a merchant what they need to do to make sure they follow the guidelines of your contract with them, between you and the merchant?
Yeah, so our approach is of trying to minimize the scope that they're touching anything related to the credit cards, right? So, um, you know, what we try to do when we're assessing a new client, we're trying to do a deep dive into their business and how they operate, what type of tools they're using today, right? In most cases, we're coming into a business that they're using 3 or 4 different vendors for payment acceptance. They've got 2 different web portals. They've got a card reader sitting in somebody's car. They got a card reader in the back office, and it's a disjointed mess, right? So that's step one. Like, try to minimize it. Can we have one processing agreement instead of 4? Can we have one set of or one type of devices if there needs to be devices, and one place to manage it? And can we have one payment gateway instead of 3 or 4? And that's where I start with is trying to, from the sales process going forward, is minimize the touch points, minimize the potential impact, and then it makes things a lot simpler, right? So in your case, right, we've got our web portal and our payment gateway, and we're the ones that are holding on and securely storing any of that card data or ACH data, right? You don't have direct access to that. You can't see full numbers, but you could take a credit card over the phone and write it down on a Post-it note. That becomes a compliance issue. So that gets into the training, the people side, and the process side. But from the technology side, can I minimize it to 1 point of entry, or 2 if it needs to be 2, or 3 instead of 5 or 6 that we usually see? So I've got Stripe for this, and I've got Square for that, and I've got Authorize.net for this, and I got this other thing that Jody knows about, no one else knows about, but they're on vacation. Like, that's what I hear usually when I'm assessing a new client and what their situation is. And it doesn't have to be that way. There are providers like us that can handle the entire scope of what you need to accept for payments. But you've got, the one trick ponies out there that only do one thing, and they make it really easy for you to set up, but they might not be the best solution for you, depending on the size and scope of your business.
And if I could piggyback on one thing Ryan hit on, that's actually can be a very big challenge for small businesses with these new requirements that take place in a few months, was he said the people, right? Historically, these processes are very technology driven, right? Very paper and technology. So if you have paper documents, they have to be locked, secured, whatever. If you have technology, who's encrypting it, how's it stored, that's great. What they've added is the third kind of leg of the stool, and that's people. So over the phone involves people. So if you have employees who are receiving, even if they're just straight typing it into Ryan's portal, right? It's still my computer that I own. It sits in perishable memory. It's my employee that heard it. It's my VoIP phone system that had it for quality control. I've just recorded their phone number, right? So, and this is where these scoping documents can get confusing quickly, because in Ryan's example, historically, so this is easy. My people don't do it. They just, connect, takes care of it all, and we just log it in their portal and type it in. In 2023, in that scenario, we've added a human that we have to train and do background check, maybe, and account for. We have a VoIP phone system that we have to account for, and then my computer that I'm using to get to his online portal. Those are, you can't just not do them because your partner takes care of it. That's not a valid answer moving forward. You need someone to actually scope and architect your whole solution for you and assign responsibility out properly.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. That's where the minimizing the scope is really the best combat for cost on this, right? Your time, your effort, your ability to manage just the compliance side of it and your policies. The more touch points you have, the more you have to manage, the more expensive it is on an internal basis. Like scoping that properly, architecting it, and making it as minimal as possible is the biggest thing you can do to help. One, it's more secure that way, and two, it's less expensive.
So I've got two questions for you guys. This is probably from a consumer standpoint, not a business standpoint, but I guess it does affect everybody on this call from a business aspect. Is can a client or customer sue you because their credit card information got stolen through that process? And then the second thing is, if I'm at a restaurant, I know more and more today, all the restaurants have the little kiosks right there at the table. You can swipe your card, or they bring the credit card machine and you swipe right in front of you. Is that a new requirement that's happening in restaurants, or is that just a convenience thing?
So I'll answer the restaurant thing first. It's not a requirement. It is, as we move further and further into the security discussion, where consumers, like the actual customers paying at a restaurant, understand the security more and more. They don't want someone walking away with their credit card to a back, corner of the restaurant to go and swipe it. That makes a really good opportunity for a nefarious character to go and take their cell phone and take a picture of it. So coming to your table with a card reader, having a card reader at the table, that is a trend you're going to see more and more of. It's not a requirement. However, it's going to be demanded by the clientele at a certain point. And that's the direction that the hardware vendors and the software vendors in that space are headed towards as well. And I forgot the first question now.
Well, I guess
suing. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, someone could do that. It's not common. I haven't seen it. But yeah.
So I'll be the compliance geek in the room. So I'm actually a member of American Bar Association. So I get to I have some streams, and it's like Reddit for lawyers. So I'm not a lawyer, but I was invited to join on their technology and security group because I bring some level of private sector expertise. So there's a recent case of McCormick versus Carlos Lopez and Associates that kind of fundamentally shook things up. It used to be you had to show damage to file a lawsuit. So if I stole Ryan's credit card but didn't use it, Ryan couldn't really sue. Say I stole it from Will. Ryan couldn't really sue Will because Ryan has to show damages, right? So this McCormick case changed. The Second Circuit Court kind of shook that up and said the potential for identity theft is real and damaging, that he may have to take proactive steps. He may have to start getting LifeLock, or there is a risk that he'll have higher insurance or interest rates on a loan based on identity theft, that he's been harmed without being able to point to the specific dollar that he had to spend. That's a titanic shift in this business. The reason Ryan said that they haven't seen a lot of lawsuits because you had to show the damage, and then you could only recoup the damage. So you had to demonstrate that my mortgage rate went up half a point because I have bad credit, because it gets complicated quick, and it's hard for attorneys to do that in class action, right? Because it's a lot of work. So you didn't see a lot of lawsuits. This, of course, this Carlos Lopez lawsuit changes that in the Second Circuit Court, and it's going to keep swimming through the courts. But now it's the potential, and the thing that they hang their hat on for these lawsuits is to put it in a layman's terms, should have known better clause. If there's an industry standard, if there's a common practice among your business that you were willfully negligent on, then it's totally your fault you did this, right? So PCI is very hard for companies that signed a contract saying, I will do all this stuff, to go before a judge and jury and say, well, I didn't know how to do all that stuff. You literally signed a contract saying you'll do it. So now you enter into negligence, and now these class action suits that don't have to show physical damage. States like California are a step ahead of that, where the Consumer Privacy Act actually puts a statutory damage between $100 to $750 without anything being wrong with you. Like, you could just get $750 per record. So if I ate at your restaurant 3 times, that's $750 times 3. And that's in addition to the hard costs that I talked about, right? If I have to pay for LifeLock, if I have to pay an attorney to sue you. So the world is changing. That risk is moving down to business owners. But even worse, class action suits are learning how to monetize this. Like I said, $20 million against Landry, the big restaurant chain. That's going to be $20,000 against the local restaurant in the next year or two. And the simplest thing you can do to protect yourself against that is exactly what Ryan said. Just scope, be in deliberate, intelligent design with what you want to do with credit cards. And you can posture yourself against all of that stuff.
So my question here, John and Ryan both, is, and maybe this is more of a John question, is if I do get compromised as a merchant, and I have a lawsuit against me, I get chargebacks against me, does there any insurance that covers that? My cybersecurity insurance or crime insurance, does any insurance cover that type of stuff?
I'm going to give you the worst answer ever, the answer I hate the most. It depends, because that's a non-answer. It's a total non-answer. Just like your credit card agreement, your insurance has terms and conditions, right? I've seen insurance companies try to wiggle off the hook because the tool the hacker used was state-sponsored, developed by Russia, right? So they call that's act of war, and we're not going to pay you because acts of war. Now that one didn't work, but they had to go to court and the lawyers. Just like having an expert scope your credit card strategy, you also want to have an expert, a broker, not an agent, but a broker, look at your insurances and make sure you have the right insurances for different things. Is a ransomware event a crime? It is, but does it fall under your crime? Is cybersecurity insurance, does it cover negligence? Does it cover fraud? Or as the insurance companies say, misrepresentation of a warranty? So just like your insurance says you'll do all these things, credit card says you'll do all these things. they're going to send the same auditor the credit card company would have sent to prove that you are out of compliance with your insurance, with your credit card. That's why it's so important to have somebody. If you don't know how to do it yourself, get a partner. Call Ryan, call me, get a partner to help you scope it and be deliberate. And business owners make risk decisions all day, every day. To our restaurant analogy, you could, if you sell seafood, you could get someone sick. It could happen. You have insurance, you do your best, right? The key is that you've taken the steps that are important to you to be at the level of risk you're willing to tolerate. Most companies I work with they are at the risk level that they inherited because they didn't know they had choices. And that's what we really want to do about being deliberate. Talk to credit card companies, talk to IT companies, talk to insurance companies to be at a deliberate risk tolerance, not one you just inherited because you wanted to save 5% on credit card fees.
Yep.
And the insurance side too, like you kind of get what you pay for in those agreements. So if you're paying $15 a month or $20 a month for cyber insurance, you better believe it's not going to cover the $250,000 of cost for a card spinning attack that you have on your website. It's not going to touch it. So exactly what John's saying, like you need to know what you're signing up for and what it's going to cover. If you bring in some experts, they can look at things and give you an idea at least of what that tolerance should be on the agreements that you're looking for. But again, you're spending the $20 a month. Don't expect that it's going to cover millions of dollars. They're going to find a way out.
Why not? No, and we actually have a webinar that was a few maybe a month and a half ago that covers insurance. So we had one of our partners, Rusty, on talking about cybersecurity insurance and what type of insurance you need. I encourage you to go back and listen to that webinar. It's on the platform that you're viewing us on today. But yeah, we do, between me and John, we do review a lot of, we ask our clients for the cybersecurity insurance policies that they have. And a lot of times they think because it's built into the general liability that there's a small little line item there. You definitely want a separate cyber insurance policy from your general liability for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of outs, like John's saying, a lot of different outs. State sponsored, tool, absolutely. They will use that. They will use any one of those outs to not pay a claim.
Yep. So guys, all in all, what is, and by the way, anybody has questions for Ryan or John or myself, please put in the chat. I know Cassidy has mentioned that a few times in chat here, but if you have questions, please put that in chat. But all in all, guys, what does a company do? How do they protect themselves against the credit card company, the merchant, the consumer? From a PCI standpoint, what are the requirements that are pushing down, and from those requirements, what do they need to do?
I think the one thing I advise people on is rarely are you going to be in a situation where you're going to have the expertise in house on something like this. Every once in a while you're going to have a company big enough that can support having in-house knowledge of some of these intricate compliance and risk areas. But if you don't, you should be seeking out professionals on that and work with companies that are looking at the holistic approach, trying to look at your business as a whole and not just checking the box.
Yeah, one thing every business owner can do is take a highlighter and print your terms and conditions and highlight everything you don't understand, right? Because you've agreed to it. And the more highlighter on that page, the more you need to get somebody in there, right? Because honestly, you shouldn't have highlighting any, especially if you have a managed service provider, if you have an IT company, leverage your IT company. If your IT company is not ahead of this and working out with you, well, we'll at the end, you throw up a link, just a QR code, send it to me. I'll look at it with you, right? For my clients here at Vector Choice, I do the highlighting for them because I know what it means, but what I highlight is all the stuff that they agreed to that I want to call out, right? You are agreeing to all this stuff. Ideally, send it to me before you sign it, right? Because that may be the difference between the 4% one or the 3.5% one, right? To Ryan's point, you get what you pay for sometimes. But on the flip side, not all the time. I was helping a customer in Louisiana that actually had their bank, their actual small local bank was going to handle their payment stuff for them. And it was extremely generous. I couldn't believe how much the bank was saying, no, we'll take care of it. We'll be responsible. Like they're probably going to update that in the next year. But for right now, I was like, sign it as fast as you can. That was my guidance to them, right? So let me help you navigate this again, ideally before you sign it, but even if it's afterwards, business owners should know where their risk sits and choose the risk level, just like car insurance. Not everybody has the cheapest bare minimum car insurance. They sit where they want to sit risk wise. Do the same thing with your credit cards.
Yeah,
Ryan,
to add to that, like pricing wise, right? There's going to be thousands of different players in the U.S. and in Canada and all over the country, right? That they're going to have different pricing, right? You're looking at providers that, like John's saying, it might be a 0.5% difference from one thing to the next, but the level of service and the level of what they're doing is very different. So like my company, we've always been we are not going to be the cheapest price. We absolutely won't, but can we offer the best value, right? And that's been what we've always been after. And it's a moving target, right? You're always trying to adjust to the market and what's out there for technology, but not everybody operates that way. Some it's just we're going to put the lowest price out there to get the most clients, and you're gonna get burned potentially on that because prices go up and they can change it whenever they like.
And I'll just throw this in there. And Ryan in no way paid me for this, but I do this for a living, and we went with Ryan. Just throwing that out there.
Ryan, a question for you.
Yeah.
There's tons of IT companies out there, right? But there's some good, very, very good IT companies from an IT standpoint. But there is a difference between knowing IT and knowing cybersecurity and compliance. Can you talk a little bit from your standpoint, not being Vector Choice, but can you talk to a little bit of why choosing your right IT partner is important?
Absolutely, yeah. So I might be an expert in that. I only work with 2,500 MSPs all over the world. So
That's true.
I do have a pretty good picture of what a good MSP looks like, right? And I get to look behind the covers a little more than what the average person might be able to, right? Because I can see the financials of every single one of these MSPs. And I also talk to them about their business and how they run it and what their strategy is and all these things. And, you know, there definitely are some out there that they're just trying to survive, right? They're just trying to piece together enough to be competitive enough to keep their clients that they already have. And then there's the proactive MSPs out there that are trying to be a more holistic solution, be experts in areas of compliance and security, and make that part of their normal practice. It's not just a checkbox on a sales pitch. It's actually investing in the people and the processes that support that. Not everybody can do that. Not everyone's in that type of position. Your smaller MSPs can offer that, but they have to partner with somebody like Will, to do that. They can't just do it in-house. You can't be the everything to everyone when you have a team of 8 people or 10 people. It's not possible. So they have to partner with larger MSPs or larger technology providers to do that. So some can do that successfully. Some they're just trying to survive.
Yep. And John, you do a lot of coaching as well to MSPs about compliance. Some of the things that we do is we have John, coach MSPs on how to, do compliance and everything. John, what's your thought? I mean, you came from an MSP as well. What's your thoughts on the different types of IT versus compliance type companies?
So the big tectonic shift that's happening is that MSPs being a expense to keep things operating a bare minimum capability, right? So I have to have my computers up 90% of the time. I have to be able to send an email 98% of the time. With customers, small business, medium business owners who don't have internal IT staffs, said, well, I'll hire someone to come in, keep my printer printing, keep my emails flowing. They saw IT as just essentially an expense to communicate, no different than their cell phone bill. It was in that same category, the same thinking. But the requirements for security and then by extension compliance, and the difference being I can be wholly compliant but in no way secure, right? And vice versa. I can be completely secure but not be meeting the terms and conditions of the contract you signed. So there's this whole new layer of securing our private data, both our data and our customers' data, but then also being able to demonstrate to somebody else that we're doing the right thing back in time when the bad event happened. That is a fundamental different skill set. It requires different tools, different training, and it's expensive and time consuming. And the companies that have only stayed focused on keeping printers printing and keeping your Microsoft updated, they're missing the actual business function that these clients are now trying to solve for. Restaurants aren't in business to print menus or to send email campaigns. Those are just the tools they need to get their job done. Restaurants are trying to sell food and they have to make food, sell it, and get paid for it. So now that we're just back to our credit card analogy, there is an IT compliance security aspect to the critical business function of getting paid. It's same with shipping, same with your insurance. IT is just touching more and more critical business functions. And the MSPs who've stayed in the world of running network cables and refilling your printer toner, they're missing the fact that they are now a hindrance, not an enabler, but a hindrance to critical business functions. And it's a different way of thinking about it. I have this talk with prospects and clients, and I'm like, if you keep thinking of IT as just a fixed cost to like your cell phone bill or your cable bill, then we're probably honestly not the right partner for you moving forward. But if knowing your credit cards will get paid without fines, if knowing the government will hit you, knowing that you're less likely to get sued, right? Or that your clients aren't going to leave you because you can't protect their data. If those are critical business functions for you, then maybe we are the right partner for you.
Yep. Okay. All right. Well, guys, any final thoughts on, anything else to share that I've missed out on today?
Just that this is the part where you volunteer all my time to help people do this.
that is actually perfect timing since I threw that up on the screen as you say that. So yes, John has been voluntold, is a new term here that we use. So yeah, if you would like to have John review your credit card processing payment agreement, even your insurance agreement, or talk about compliancy within your company, you could be an existing client or you could be someone new listening to this webinar. Scan the QR code, but also there's the link below. I'm sure my team will put it here in the chat here in a second as well. But feel free to reach out to John and talk about those things. No pressure at all. He truly, and we at Vector Choice truly just want to help. Regardless if we're just giving you, the tools to take back to your IT company or tools to take back to your insurance provider or just a game plan for you. We're willing and able to help you guys with that.
I'll go a step past that, Will. If you pay a different company to do all this for you, I have some tools that I'll show you if they're actually doing all the stuff, dotting every I and crossing every T that you pay for in your service agreement, right? So you don't even have to be our client. You can be somebody else's client. I'll still for free. And if they're doing everything on point, God bless. You got a great company. Keep using them. And if not, we can show you why, what the deficiency is. So I'll take it even a step further than I normally do. So I must be in a good mood today.
You must be. You must be. It's not like you don't have to travel this afternoon either. But yeah, guys, look at this. Goes straight to John's calendar. Pick a time that works for you. Cassidy just posted in the chat there, so you guys will have that available to you guys as well. And also, if you want to reach out to Ryan directly and Ryan's team, he can help you get you to his team. That if you were looking at new a payment processor, a credit card processor, a portal aspect of things, Ryan and his team can definitely help you there. And Ryan's probably going to kill me for giving out his email address on here, but sorry, Ryan.
Right.
But
it's out in the world. It's been there for many years. I get a lot of
yeah, just respond back, say, hey, here's a link to fill out. So Ryan is definitely very busy. And then also, if you want to contact us for any information at all, you can email us at info@vectorchoice.com, or you can call our phone number 877-468-1230. Well, Ryan and John, I appreciate you guys being on today. I hope this helps you guys and the audience here think about what you need to be thinking about for your PCI compliance in 2023. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us, schedule time with John, or reach out to Ryan. John and Ryan, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Will.
Thank you, Will. Good talking to you, Ryan.
Likewise.